Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are stepping up here with all of our local sponsors, including our friends at DeHarka, where the caramel crunch happens with that chocolate-covered honeycomb toffee. Yeah, it's as good as it sounds. Made in Baltimore, it's DeHarka, and made with love here and serving up social change as well. We'll be talking to Sean and all the folks from DeHarka here on Baltimore Positive, as well as our friends at Fadley's. We're trying to get together with all of our guests, either at Fadley's or at State Fair, over crab cake or some shrimp and grits, some chicken and waffles, a club sandwich. It's been tough in the era of COVID, but we're hoping to get back to that very, very soon. We'll be over at State Fair where they're opening El Guapo across the street for a quesadilla. And, of course, Fadley's, you can ship those crab cakes anywhere in the world, one click away on the website. Also, one click away from great representation and selling homes. I just saw on my Facebook, Jeff Moeller just listed a home in Severn. So I see them now on video. You can go to Moeller and Gary Realty and learn more about all that they're doing there. And, of course, Jeff Moeller's proud dad, Don Moeller, will tell you more about that. Don, I'm going to let you do the honors because it's been a little while since we do a lot of election, we do a lot of public policy, we do authors, but we have a real mayoral candidate here, which is the first time we've had this in a couple of months, right?
There actually is going to be an election. And Nestor, before I introduce our esteemed guest, I want to tell you that over the weekend, I was talking with some friends and they said to me, they were a little skeptical. They said, is that DeHarka ice cream really as good as Nestor makes it sound? I said, guys, I hate to tell you this, it might even be better than Nestor makes it.
Well, I had the pistachio the other night, and I'm a Honey Graham guy, but the pistachios moved to front of class. I don't know. It's probably seasonal for me. Eggnog's coming soon. That'll change.
I bet Bob's familiar with DeHarka ice cream. It is our pleasure to welcome in independent candidate for the mayor of Baltimore, Baltimore businessman, Bob Wallace. Bob, welcome to Baltimore Positive.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Nestor. It's great to be here.
Well, Bob, for you in running for mayor and putting an idea together, I don't think it's any secret that I entertained the idea. Poor Don Moeller read through 40 pages of text and a plan that I had that it's still only my wife and Don Moeller and myself have read. I pulled back when Brandon won. I believe that Sheila would have made it interesting for lots of people. But I want to give you all the options in the world because I think when you put yourself into this space to run and put yourself out there and you're a successful businessman, you didn't have to run for mayor, and you've put this side of your life together to do this. And I have incredible respect for what an undertaking it is.
Thank you, Nestor. It's been a journey. I mean, I'm as you know, I'm from Baltimore, born and raised in Cherry Hill. Went to Cherry Hill Elementary, Cherry Hill Middle School, and then the Poly High School. So my roots are here in Baltimore. I love this city. I love what it has done for me, how it has helped me. But I must tell you, I'm disappointed in the direction that we've been going in the last couple of years. And I moved my company from Columbia to downtown Baltimore in 2005. I've been here as far as my company and living here since 2005. And I can tell you it's been difficult from a business perspective because when I moved from Columbia to downtown Baltimore, we've had all the challenges that businesses and people face in Baltimore City. We've had employees who've been carjacked at gunpoint, broad daylight. Our cars are broken into almost every day. We have the homeless issue to deal with. We've got customers who are afraid to come to the city to visit with us. And it's difficult for me to attract engineers and scientists to my company because they're afraid of Baltimore City. So you look at these trends that we're facing as a city. And I just said, you know what, we're going in the wrong direction. And so what has to change? And I think the first thought is we got to change the leadership in the city.
Well, for anybody that hears our voice and Baltimore Positive, you are echoing the phone call I made to Don Moeller, literally, when Don was running Baltimore County, literally 2 years ago this week, I think, when he showed up at the Ravens game, and we've been sitting together as the county executive. He used to be D.I., my buddy from Catonsville. And I said to him, and Don, you would agree there were less people at the games. You were coming downtown, and that's where the whole conversation began to take a sports guy and make a voice and say, we're all in this together, right?
Yes. So So yeah, that's as far as I'm concerned, we are all in this together. And that's why, me as a non-politician and as a business executive, I felt compelled. I felt compelled to make this move to give our city another option for leadership than the traditional option. I mean, if you look at our leadership, Nestor and Don, over the last couple decades, it's been a pattern that has evolved. The city council, and then city council president, and then coronation as mayor. And we've done this numerous times. We did it with Sheila. We did it with Stephanie Rawlings Blake. Jack was the city council president, and now mayor. We kind of skipped Kathy Pugh a little bit, but she was still a career politician. And so we look at this pattern, and
well, she was a criminal. Let's call. I mean, I don't have any problem calling.
I hear you, Nestor. I hear you. I'm being a little more gracious, but your point is valid, Nestor. I cannot deny that. And so, but we have this pattern of leadership in our city, and we see what we've gotten from it. And so, folks, I just ask you, if you always do what you've always done, then you always get what you've always gotten. And so I look at this as an entrepreneur, businessman. I say, wait a minute, this pattern does not work. As my daddy used to say, this dog don't hunt. And so we need to change and go in a different direction as a city if we're going to go in a better direction and become, as I call it, Baltimore 2.0.
Well, Bob, picking up on that, let's first start with, and I think it's no secret when Nestor talked about wanting to run, he's been pretty public that I kept saying to him, Nestor, it's not a good idea. Mm-hmm. You're not going to win. I wasn't a fan of Nestor running. That's never stopped Nestor from doing anything.
That was not going to stop me, Bob. Trust me.
In his life, it wasn't going to stop.
The only one that stopped me from running was me and Brandon winning by enough that led me to believe that I couldn't win, because I wasn't going to run to be a clown. I was going to run to win.
So knowing that I had advised Nestor not to run, I didn't think it was a good idea, knowing that he was likely to ignore me. I'll ask you the same question that I asked him. What's your path to victory? Because I think when people look at elective races, they want to know who's a viable candidate. And we've never had a situation in Baltimore City where an independent candidate has been able really to gather any amount of votes. So talk to me about you and your inner circle and what you see as a path to victory. How are you going to make this happen?
Great question, Don. So Don, let me start first with the petition process. So as you know, to get on the ballot as an independent, you've got to capture so many number of petitions that registered voters who will sign a petition to allow you to be on the ballot. I will tell you, Don, that we captured more than 4 times the requirement that the state or the city required.
Required was 3,981 at the time.
Yeah, at the time. Then they dropped it down to a different number, Nestor. So it was like 4 times, like it was 2,000 and some change on that with the new law that was changed. So we came in with over 4 times that. And I would tell you that the feedback we got from the people that were signing petitions is that it's time for change in Baltimore City. And Mr. Wallace, you might be that change. So I'll start with that, Don. The second thing I'll start with is timing. And you and I, we all know that good ideas and direction is all about timing. You can have a great idea with a great plan, but if the timing is not right, it will not work. I'm suggesting to you that the timing in Baltimore City is such that the people of the city are saying, you know what, enough is enough. We cannot keep going in this direction. And so the timing is that we're building this coalition. I call it the Ascendant Coalition, the Coalition of the Ascendant. And it consists of Democrats, Republicans, independents, unaffiliates, blue-collar workers, all the people who share one mission and one vision. And that is that Baltimore is going in the wrong direction, that our leadership has failed us, and that we need to get new leadership with a new direction. And that's the common bond that builds this coalition together. And Don, I'm telling you, we're out in the neighborhoods. We're walking with Wallace campaign. We're walking all 32 zip codes in Baltimore City. And I can tell you, almost 100% of the people that we're meeting in the neighborhoods, number one, Don, they know who I am. Oh, you Bob Wallace. Yeah, I know who you are. And they're saying, I'm a Democrat, but I'm voting for you, because we need change in our city. And so, Don, the path to victory for us is very clear. Number one is we've got to win enough Democrats to win this thing. So Brandon Scott got 29% of the Democratic primary. That means that 70 or 71% of the Democrats chose someone else.
Sounds like me, Don.
I've heard that. I've heard that pitch from Nestor from time to time.
Yeah, Don. And so I think the support is very, very soft. And I think that, again, timing. People are saying, wait a minute, we've had decades of this leadership. This is the results that we've gotten. Let's try something else. Let's give a different person a different approach who has different leadership qualities to help lead our city.
Okay. Well, let me stop you there, Bob,
please.
Because I think that part, that passion, the commitment comes through loud and clear. The idea that, look, guys, we've tried all this before. Same old, same old. Let's try something else. So I've got the message of we've got to try something else. Now,
right.
let's get specific. Let's get Bob Wallace specific here. Not long ago, we interviewed former mayor, president of the University of Baltimore, Kurt Schmoke.
Yes, sir.
And the mayor said, he bottom lined it. He said, Don, Nestor, it's the bottom line. Anybody that's going to be mayor, it still remains in Baltimore what it was when I was mayor. It's crime and grime. So let's start. You've alluded to it in your opening about the challenge you have getting folks to come down to your business. So let's start with number one. Let's start with crime.
Absolutely.
What does Bob Wallace do to get this thing turned around? Because I think we all agree,
yes,
it can't go on the way it is. So tell me what Bob Wallace as mayor does to make Baltimore safer.
That's a great question, Don. And you're right. It is number one, because if we don't fix the crime issue, then nothing else matters. Businesses leave, families leave. We become a shell of a city. So my approach to crime is this, and it's kind of based upon, Don, not only what the experts are telling me, but also my personal experience being raised in Cherry Hill in the projects. I know about crime. I know about violence on a personal level. My wife's family has lost, my mother-in-law has lost 4 of her 9 children in East Baltimore, right? Some to violence, some to drugs, but some to that whole underground economy, right? So I understand this. So my approach is twofold. Number one is the immediate crisis of the violence that is taking over our city. And the other one is more of a systemic approach to how do we change the system such that our young people are making better decisions with their lives. Let's take the crisis situation. The crisis situation is this. We know that there's a very small percent of the population that is committing these crimes, these violent, gun-oriented crimes, these trigger pullers, as we call them. We know who they are, and we know where they live. So my plan is this. Number one, people ask me what I do with Commissioner Harrington, the current commissioner. My plan is to keep the current commissioner and work with him to implement his plan.
So Michael Harrison has job security in the beginning under Mayor Bob Wallace.
Yes, he does. And here's why, Don. We've had this revolving door process for our police commissioners. I think we've had like 4 commissioners in the last 5 years. This is crazy. We're never going to get any kind of momentum if we keep changing our leadership. So I've seen enough of his plan that I'm saying, okay, I think this is a reasonable plan. I think that with the proper resources and focus, let's let this plan work and work out. And I will support him in that regard. Now, I will validate the results, and I will look at the progression, and then I'll make an assessment at that point. But I'm not interested in bringing in a new commissioner right out the gate here. So that's number one. Number two, focusing on the repeat offenders in our city. We know who they are. We know where they live. So I have an ABC approach to this crime issue. Number one is you abstain from the behavior that is unacceptable in our society. And B says, I'm going to bring to bear resources, wraparound resources to help you young men, and it's mostly young men, and it's mostly young African-American men. Let's be real about this. I'm going to bring you wraparound resources such as job enhancement, skill enhancement, workforce development, mental illness support, home stability, all the things that might help you, sir or ma'am, to make the right decision. Okay. Now that's A and B. Now C is consequences. So if I tell you to abstain and I bring to the table resources to help you, because I'm not trying to criminalize anyone, right, or a community. As an African-American man, I'm very sensitive to the relationship between law enforcement and the African-American community. However, there's certain behavior that as mayor, I will not accept. And one of them is putting in danger, harming any of our citizens. So there's so serious consequences. So if I bring resources to bear to help you make a better choice, and then you still decide to take a gun and take someone's life or injure any of my citizens, you will be held accountable. That means I will get you arrested, I will process you through the system, and I will get you out of the neighborhoods that you are putting at risk, right? And I'm not over criminalizing anything here. I'm saying that anyone, and it's a very small group, who makes a decision to take a gun and to hurt any citizen in the city, they will have to deal with the consequences of that, right? So that's the upfront piece. The longer term piece, guys, is we have to change the system of law enforcement. So they talk about defunding the police. Well, I think that's a bad terminology. I don't think they mean that by just, getting rid of the police. That's just silly. But I am open and interested in re-looking and repurposing and reimagining how we do public safety. Next year, we're going to spend between $550 million for public safety in Baltimore City. We spend more on public safety than we do on public education. So, given the money that we're spending, guys, all I'm saying is let's look at the outcomes that we're achieving with that investment, as any executive would do. Look at, what am I spending? What am I getting out of it? Does it match? Does it map up? If it doesn't map up, then I'm saying, wait a minute, time out. Let's reimagine this, how we're going to spend this money to get better results. That may mean that we take some resources and put them towards homeless issues or mental illness issues. We are asking our police officers, guys, to do too much that they were never trained for and never intended to do. But every time there's an issue in the city, who do we call? We call the police. And then these men and women are put in a bad position where they have to make a split second decision. And sometimes it goes bad. Sometimes it goes wrong. That does not mean we don't hold police accountable. We do. I will hold them accountable because they are professionals. This is you and I professionals. I'm an engineer. That's my background. I'm held accountable to my decisions as an engineer. So should a police officer. But given that, we're asking our officers to do things they were not trained to do. And so we have to rethink, Don and Nestor, how we do this, how we re-engineer to get better outcomes.
Well, I wanted to pick up on that, Bob, because in your response, you then touched on another issue that the next mayor is going to have to deal with right out of the gate. And that's the whole issue of police reform. And Nestor and I have had a multitude of guests from the academic world to the practitioners to elected officials. And as you indicated, it seems to me that we're capable of holding two thoughts at the same time. In other words, we need police protection in our community.
Yes, sir.
If you're going to go out there and assault police officers and endanger police officers who are trying to protect you, you're a thug. You need to be brought to justice. At the same time, there's another thought that says there's been an element of systemic racism in our police departments across the United States of America. Black men and women have often felt hunted on the streets of the United States of America, and we can't tolerate that. Both of those things can be true. Right. So what does Bob Wallace do to deal with the FOP and the entire police reform issue?
Yeah, Don, that's a great question, Don. So let me just start with perspective. So as a young boy in Baltimore and Cherry Hill, I've been on both sides of the police, right? And I'm familiar. I remember in 1968, the riots of 1968. I can remember that. And I can remember the police coming through our neighborhood and not showing us respect. So that was kind of the relationship that we had. At the same time, I also remember the police athletic league, where we had police officers who were our coaches on our teams, who were walking the streets, who knew our parents, and they built this relationship within the city. So I think, Don, that relationship has to be built between the city and the community and the police officers. Here's our reality. As mayor, I represent the people, the citizens of the city, and I represent the police officers. So my job as mayor is to figure out, how do I represent the interests of these two entities who are interdependent in their success? In other words, if we want public safety, the police need the community and the community needs the police. So we got to figure out, how do we build this trust between those two? And I tell you, Don, one key area that I focus on is any area of witness protection. And I'll tell you why. Because I know when I was coming up in the neighborhood, whenever a crime was committed, the people in the neighborhood knew exactly who the culprit was. They knew who the person was, but they did not trust the police to share that information to put that person under arrest. If we can rebuild the trust between the police and the community, and looking at the witness protection program, for example, as one of the specific objects, we would have so much intelligence that the officers would be able to obtain so that they could close these cases and get the repeat offenders off the street. I was reading some record, Don, the other day that said that like 70-something% of cases are not solved. So if I'm a criminal, I'm looking at, gee, I got a pretty good chance if I commit a crime that I'm not going to do any time. Well, that has to change. And I think the way we do that is through the witness protection program being fortified so that the people in the neighborhoods feel comfortable talking to the police.
Bob, every time, Nestor, I can see Nestor's head. It starts to explode when you use that stat, because every time we've been together, and we like to do these in the past pre-pandemic, we were actually all in the same room, and someone would point out that 70 to 80% of the crimes in Baltimore City go unsolved. And it doesn't even compute, Nestor, right, in your calculator.
Well, I mean, I live here too, Bob. You know, I live at the harbor, and all of this was born out of all that you've seen, and thinking that something could happen to me, my wife, a loved one, a neighbor, and there's a 3 out of 10 chance they might find the person, and then that person might do time, might come back out on the streets and do it again, right? And that's disappointing, but it can never be acceptable, for any of us. And for you, and I had heard your name the last year and a half, ever since I started thinking about doing this, and you've done the thing, and I have great admiration for what you're attempting to do here, and I certainly want to give you airtime on this. I didn't know a lot about you. People kept saying, Bob Wallace is going to run. Everybody told me that, right? Tell me about your company and your background. I mean, I've done some, rudimentary research on you, but I haven't heard your story in your own terms, other than coming from Cherry Hill. How does a kid in 68 from Cherry Hill come from there to moving a company in 2005 into the city?
So Nestor, that's a great question, Nestor. And it's one that I hope as mayor to institutionalize, to make this path available to many young people who were just like me, who started in poverty but wanted a better life. So Nestor, I had great parents. First of all, mom and daddy. My mama was a janitor. My dad was a laborer. I will also tell you about mama. Mama was also a recovering alcoholic. Now, I don't know if you two know any alcoholics or recovering ones.
I had two parents. I buried them both, but they were alcoholics.
And it's amazing. Here we go, guys. And my dad was an alcoholic. So
okay, Don,
it just shows you how widespread it is.
Amen, guys. It really is. And it was tough for us because my older brothers went to Vietnam and became career military guys. And I was the first child, Nestor, to go to college and didn't go into the war. So I was a little different because my dad saw something that he said, no, you're not going to military. You're going to college and you're going to poly. Because poly at the time was all boys school. It was kind of a nerdy school, so I didn't want to be a nerd.
Well, I mean, you took right out. You became an engineer, right?
I did.
Right?
Polytechnic.
You thought that's what you had to do when they sent you to school. When they sent me to Dundalk, nobody thought I was going to grow up to be an owl.
Yeah. go engineers, Augie Weibull, all that good stuff.
It's my Dundalk Hall of Fame. I mean, I got that going on. So. Old Al's giving
Augie Weibull. We can go on and on.
Yeah, I mean, so Nestor, to your point, 3 things mom and daddy taught us. They taught us about the power of hard work, the importance of education, and the criticality of faith in God. Right? Those 3 things. And for those 3 things, my brothers and I were able to get a path out of poverty in Cherry Hill. My brothers became esteemed career military men. My younger brother and I went to college, became engineers. And so that's the basis of success in any society, especially in America. So the key is, how do I as mayor, given the path that I've seen, so from poly, I went to UPenn to study mechanical engineering. I met my wife there at UPenn. She was studying biomedical engineering.
Probably had good cheesesteaks and pretzels, all that
there
stuff.
You go.
Right?
That's right, Nessa. You got it, bud. That's right. It kept me going as a
You're
student.
right off the train. You're right there. It's easy.
That's
Franklin
exactly
Field.
right.
I know where you are.
That's right. So I met my bride. We got married after college, started raising a family. So we had 5 kids, 5 grown kids, and 8 grandkids, 4 granddaughters and 4 grandsons. So when I came back to Baltimore after graduate school, so I went to UPenn undergrad and then to Dartmouth for my MBA for graduate school. After Dartmouth, I came back to Baltimore in 1984 because my parents were getting older. They were having some health issues, and I wanted to support them. And they've passed since that time, but that's why I came back to Baltimore. But now I've been here since '84, started my first businesses, Nesta, in information technology. So we're like in cyber, biometrics, software engineering type work. Started an energy company about 10 years ago. We do large scale solar, battery engineering, microgrid engineering. And I've also written 8 books on entrepreneurship and urban economic development. So I've done a lot of things, Nesta. I've traveled the world. I've been blessed. I've traveled the world. I met with kings and queens and presidents of countries. We do mission work over in Africa and Latin America. We build orphanages, churches, schools, water systems. So God's been good to me, and I've been able to try to give back as I've lived. But back to Baltimore. So this is one of the reasons why I'm running this for mayor, because I want to give back. I'm like a boomerang kid, right? I'm one of those kids who went away to get educated and get experiences and meet people, build relationships. But I've come back now to Baltimore, and I want to bring all the experience I've been blessed with and relationships to help rebuild our city. And that's what I think is important right now.
Well, Bob, uniquely qualified as a businessman. I think someone who has traveled the world, who's started businesses, grown businesses, multiplied businesses. Whoever ends up in that office at City Hall,
yes, sir,
is going to inherit a fiscal situation,
yes, sir,
that really is unprecedented,
yes, sir,
as a result of COVID. I saw recently that the estimates now range that as many as 60 to 70% of Baltimore City restaurants may never return.
yes, sir.
Closed to may never return.
Yes,
I just saw an economic report this morning that whoever ends up being president of the United States on January 20th
yes, sir,
will likely face one of the most severe economic downturns in the history of the nation. So whoever the mayor is going to have to face the economic realities of declining revenue from COVID,
yes, sir.
then perhaps running straight on into the headwinds of a national recession.
Yes,
What
sir.
does Bob Wallace do to get his hands on the finances and figure all of this out?
Well, a great question, Don. And Don, Nesta, I can tell you, I couldn't have picked a more challenging time to be mayor of Baltimore City for the reasons, Don, you shared. I mean, this is going to be unprecedented. And that's why I feel that the next mayor needs to have the experience of managing through crises, the experience of being able to build relationships outside of Baltimore City at the state level, at the federal level, and even internationally, right? That man or woman needs to be able to pull together the best minds and execute on policy and strategy. That's why I think of all the candidates, I'm the best qualified to do just that. So what do we do, Don? Number one, what I'm going to do is my first 100 days in office, I'm going to conduct a forensic audit of all city agencies. Because I believe.
Now tell people what that means, Bob.
So it means that
He's going to count the money.
See, he may be from Dundalk.
That's how I would get elected, Bob. I can have 3 words: count the money.
There you go, Lester. Is a third outside party, Don, to come in and do an audit of where the money's coming in, how it's being spent, and if there's any leakage of those funds and where that leakage is occurring. Because I want to know, as mayor, I'm starting out, I want to know what am I working with here and what's the good, the bad, and the ugly. The second thing we have to do is we have to build relationships with the governor at the governor's level and at the federal level. And it doesn't matter, Don and Esther, who's in the White House, whether it's Trump or Biden.
Well, better not be.
Whoever's there, I hear you, Esther. I hear you, brother. But we've got to figure out whoever's in there. I've got, as mayor, I have to put the needs of my citizens first and humble myself, whatever that may mean, and deal with the person in the White House to help our city. And then the other area is internationally. I've been blessed to have traveled internationally. I have relationships in many countries in the world. I can tell you that there is capital in different countries looking to invest in the U.S. Despite all our challenges and all our issues as a nation, we are still the best destination point for investment capital. And so part of my job as mayor will be to get our fair share of that foreign capital to invest in Baltimore. And if you look at Baltimore as a city, we got great DNA, guys. We got strong bones. We got great neighborhoods. I'm walking through them now, meeting the people. We have wonderful institutions, Johns Hopkins, Morgan State University, University of Maryland. We've got one of the best cost of living cities on the East Coast. Think about that, compared to New York or Boston or even Philly. We've got this port, one of the best ports on the Eastern Seaboard. We got all these great DNA, these great bones. But what we've been missing is the leadership to pull it together. So if we get the right person in City Hall with the right team and right plan, we can pull this together. But it's going to be hard, Don, like you're saying. It's going to be very difficult.
Bob, speaking of our language, I want to give a reset here.
Nestor.
WallaceForMayor.com. If you want to learn about Bob Wallace, he is running as an independent. I am, as I said, I tip my cap to you, as a civic leader and as a Baltimorean, as somebody trying to do this. Go ahead, Don.
No, I was just going to say, Bob, by all accounts, Baltimore City in the census is going to come in under 600,000.
Yes, sir.
So as part of this forensic audit, I go back years ago. There are other cities that have turned the corner. Nestor and I, for all the reasons you've outlined, are bullish on Baltimore. We believe Baltimore's best days are still in front of it, and it is a great city, and it can be better. But my question for you is, years back, Dave Bing, for example, in Detroit, talked about shrinking Detroit to make it stronger, that you had to really downsize it in a sense in terms of its expanse.
Yes.
Are ideas like that on the table? In other words, Baltimore for years had well over 1 million people. Now it's down to half of that. Do we need to take a real look at what Baltimore ought to look like and what services we need to make it truly a highly functioning city?
Absolutely, Don. I think that's a very, very key point. So my interest is, so the size of the city is not necessarily the outcome that I'm going to focus on. What I will focus on is the quality of the city, because I believe that if we deal with the root issues of our city and we deal with the quality, the crime, the grime, education, that then growth will be an outcome of us making the right investments. Another area, Don, that I'm going to focus on, which is not very popular, is the tax situation. Our property taxes in Baltimore City, as you guys know, is double that of the surrounding counties. Now, if I'm an investor that has capital and businesses and I want to place them somewhere, am I going to come to Baltimore City?
It's crippling. It's a non-starter. It literally is a non-starter.
Yeah, it's a non-starter. It really, really is. I mean, you got guys like me who have stayed in the city for 15 years with their businesses because I love the city. But most business people will look at those numbers and say, whoa, that dog don't hunt. And then they'll move someplace else. And
you and I have many, many friends and associates who've done that.
Yeah, we have. And that's very, very true. And there's some businesses now who have told me, Bob, we have 1 foot out the door in Baltimore City. And depending on the selection, we're going to decide what we're going to do.
Well, Don, as Baltimore County executive, you and everyone in your seat was that's the pitch, right? That's the pitch.
No, I was going to say that, Nestor. It was a really complicated situation. It's a wonderful discussion because we really did bend over backwards. And I think everyone, the business community, recognized this. We bent over backwards to not raid Baltimore City businesses. We did not want to benefit by taking businesses from the city. Now, folks were relocating from outside of the area, then we'd go toe-to-toe with the city and try to sell Baltimore County. But I will tell you that it got increasingly more difficult as companies continued to approach
Well,
us.
Don, I live next door to a hole that's now a tower that was McCormick Spice when I was a boy, right?
Right.
I would come down here and, the McCormick Spice Company was at the harbor, and somehow they're out in Schwann Road now, right? And obviously the expanse and, changes. Under Armour came here, right? So, we've seen things
And we need
happen,
Under
right?
Armour to thrive and succeed.
Amen, Don.
And remain here and thrive in Port Covington. So, Bob, that gets us. Nestor's question there is a jumping off point. You're an economic development guy. Come on, that's been your whole life. What are you going to do to breathe new life into the businesses in the city? Because that's Nestor's lifeblood as well. He's a small businessman. He depends on successful businesses in Baltimore City.
Absolutely. So Don, first in terms of context, my view is that every crisis, every problem is an opportunity to create jobs, right? So even this pandemic that we're going through, COVID-19, and by the way, guys, this is just the beginning of a number of crises that we're going to face as a society and as a global community. But I believe that every crisis and every problem is the seed of creating an economy and creating jobs. So my plan in my first term as mayor is to create 100,000 jobs in Baltimore City. Part B of that plan is to attract at least $1 billion of new investment into Baltimore City. And so there are things that we have to do to make that happen on the outside: crime, grime, quality of life. Those things have to be addressed. But as I said, Baltimore has great DNA and strong bones. So we pull that together. This can be a very, very attractive city that people want to live in. But we have to build that economy, Don. But it has to be built now, Don, on a new reality. Because here's what's happening. With COVID-19, you notice Midtown is almost like a ghost town because people are working remotely. And that businesses through the pandemic have realized, gee, we can run our business remotely, right, and still be effective. Well, what does that mean to all the real estate in Baltimore City, all those office buildings and all those things, and the small businesses that were supporting those people in those buildings? So that is a different environment that we have to operate in. One of the things that I'm betting on, and maybe this is the engineer in me, I believe that there'll be emerging economies that we need to capture. Things like artificial intelligence, things like cryptocurrency, things like robotics, things like biotech and nanotechnology areas. These are the emerging technologies that we need to control as a city and as a region. And I believe that if we do that, we'll be effective at building our economy. So Don and Nestor, I'm not interested in crying over the past. Okay, what didn't happen there? I'm looking at the future and saying, what do we need to do to position our city and our region to be major players in those emerging economies? And that's what the next mayor has to be able to do. He or she has to be able to make that happen for Baltimore City.
100,000 new jobs. You sound like a politician, Bob. Come on.
Yeah. Bob, one of the other things you're going to face is that the current city council has taken moves to really reduce some of the mayor's power.
Yes, sir.
And despite what the president of the United States thinks, we don't have kings and queens. We have executive branches that have to work with legislative branches. Any mayor is going to have to roll up their sleeves, get to work with Nick Mosby and the rest of the council. How does Bob Wallace, as mayor, work and create relationships with city council members?
Well, I think first thing you do, Don, for me, is to have mutual respect. So I believe that we can disagree, but not be disagreeable, right? So I know Nick Mosby. I have a lot of respect for Nick. I've tried to mentor Nick over the years because he's like a son to me. So I like Nick.
That's a good start then, right?
Yeah. The rest of the council people, I don't know so well, Don, but I respect them. I respect them as professionals and as people. And then we have a shared mission, which is to make Baltimore a much greater city from what it is today. But I must say, we have to focus on what's going to help us to be great and help make that happen. Now, I do not agree with the city administrator role that Brandon Scott has put forth. I think it's a horrible idea. And I hope that the voters vote it down. And here's the reason why. Because if I'm in the heat of battle, I'm the mayor now, and Don, if I'm in the environment that you articulated, our new environment is going to be, we're already projecting $103 million deficit in next fiscal year for Baltimore City. So if I'm in the heat of battle, I need control of all the resources at my disposal to do what I have to do. And this idea of the city administrator, I think it's a horrible idea. And I would say to Mr. Scott, you either want to be mayor, you can't play mayor, you got to be mayor. So the next mayor can't just play mayor and do press announcements and ribbon cuttings and all that kind of cute stuff. He or she has to roll up their sleeves, get down in the dirt and the grime, get down in there with the people and make some things happen. And it's going to be tough, it's going to be bloody, and it's going to take somebody who has courage. That's what's going to happen. Well, Baltimore get through.
Bob, you've made this, I can promise you, you've made my life miserable, because I'm pretty sure that when we hang up, Nestor's going to call me and give me a raft of doo-doo saying, see, Moeller, I told you an independent could be competitive. And I can see the wheels in his mind.
You have no idea how many conversations I had for a year where you came up as the competitor. And I was like, well, hold on. The winner of the primary is maybe going to get 30%, maybe get 30%. So I always felt like there was an opening, and whether the world would be open to hearing that message. And I know you're buying advertising. I see you around, obviously doing our show and others, and people do know who you are. And, you know, TJ Smith had name recognition, and lots of people spent a lot of money. Why did you not run in the primary? Did you see your opportunity? I saw the opportunity as running against Sheila winning. That's how I saw it the whole time. I didn't see it as if someone else were to emerge, that someone else would probably be hard to defeat.
I follow you. So Nestor, I also thought that Sheila Dixon was going to win the Democratic primary, but you made a very good point. If you look at the pattern of the Democratic primary in Baltimore City over time, the winner of the Democratic primary is getting, their percent is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. That means that the Democratic base is unsettled. They're not confident. They're not clear on the leadership. So I see that as an opening and an opportunity. So Nestor, I've been running for about over a year and a half, but it's been a stealth kind of race at that point, because I'm looking at the primary. As you know, as the independent, I don't run in the primary. I run in the general. So I couldn't run in the primary anyway. But what I did—
You're a registered independent.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, fair enough.
So I was a Democrat early in my career. I became a Republican and later, and then I became an independent. And that's kind of been the progression, my political thinking and my progression as a man over time. But if you look at the primary though, Nestor, you had like 24 Democrats running. You're like 5 or 6 Republicans running for mayor. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And so I studied that environment, studied the issues, studied what was happening, and I felt that as an independent, that my timing had to be what it was. And I think that was the right decision.
Well, we'll say after you win or lose, we'll have you back on. You can tell me how you left the Republican Party. Okay, we'll go through that. All right.
Sure.
That'll be our next guy. Well, that's always the interesting question. Don, are we done with our questioning now?
I think we've really had an in-depth discussion, Bob. As I said, I've always said, because even though I ended up as county executive through very unfortunate circumstances, I never jumped in there and ran for office for a variety of reasons. And like Nestor, anyone who runs, Democrat, Republican, Independent, I always tip my hat to them, because it's a big strain on you. It's a strain on your family. You're in a fishbowl. So win or lose, I congratulate you for being part of the discussion. And we do look forward to having you back to talk about this more.
I would love to, gentlemen. We got some issues in our city, but we got great people like you guys, and we're on to a great path. I think that our future is going to be better than our past.
Bob Wallace running for mayor. You can find him at Wallace for Mayor on the internet, and very easy. And this is our plug here to make sure you get your ballot, make sure you go to the website, make sure you're voting, and make sure you're following us at Baltimore Positive. On behalf of former Baltimore County Executive Don Moeller, I am Nestor Aparicio. Big thanks to all of our sponsors, including Taharka and State Fair and Fadley's and Moeller and Gary Realty. We're doing it. We're merging WNST.net with Baltimore Positive this week. Stay with us. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking. Baltimore Positive.